Hello and welcome to another episode of the Nono Show. It's also not Futare wa Precure, but I think I mentioned the possibility of doing this when we did Doremi. I forget. Whatever. It's fucking Princess Tutu. Enjoy, motherfuckers. Hi. Wait, this is supposed to be a wholesome, cute time, and I'm being toxic. This is my co-host Mathwiz, who isn't toxic. Hi, Mathwiz. How are you today?
Maybe I was just a duck all along.
Aren't we all just ducks on the inside? I don't know. So yeah, we watched this anime. It was from 2002, so I thought it was 2004 for some reason.
More like 2002.
God damn it. I mean, I started it because, so this show is a little bit different with how we watched it. So normally what we do is we watch it independently, though I would usually follow along with Mathwiz, so
because I'm slower at watching anime.
Until you're not, because with Doremi, that Moto, you were pretty much daily with it. No, yeah, you kept watching. You consistently watched one episode a day. Where with the previous season, it took almost a year. So yeah, I would basically stalk your mailing list, and I'd see whenever you watched a new episode, and okay, I'll watch the next episode, I guess. But with this one, we would watch it in call once a week. We'd watch 3 episodes, give or take. I think it was always 3 episodes. Well, the production show, the download you had, they were normal length episodes, but apparently half of the show aired in half episode chunks. So it's on my list, it's 38 episodes counted.
Yeah, so it was a single core, and then the second core split into 2 cores.
Right, so it rounds out to being actually 26 episodes. So which is what? So if you download it and you're like, why is it 26 episodes? Well, but it says 38 ml because that's why. But yeah, we watched it just in call together, sometimes talking about it afterwards, except with the ending, because we knew we're going to record a podcast on it. So yeah, just a little bit different as to, I don't know if that'll affect the discussion any, but yeah, I just thought I'd just be transparent with how it is a little bit different than normal.
It's a trial run of this format, you could say.
Yes. Because part of it came up because, Mathwiz sometimes struggles to watch things, I think, because with Doremi and Futare wa, you're also watching 3 other magical girl things, so it's not even that big a deal. But
I'm watching all the magical girl things.
All the magical girl things.
Sailor Moon, right. Cardcaptor Sakura, going through Doremi, Precure. 2 seasons of Precure even. Let's go.
Yeah. No. I'm similar because I the other day I looked at my mail and on your profile it shows the last 3 episodes or the last 3 things that you've watched, and at one point it was it was Tropical Rouge, Precure, Go Princess Precure, and Sailor Moon, because I'm watching all of them. So I'm yes, magical girls, let's go. But yeah, and or maybe Princess Tutu is there, because Princess Tutu is also a magical girl thing we're watching, and it was good. And the duck is cute.
Oh man, yeah, Ahiru is easily one of easily my favorite character. Well, I mean, I would say probably my favorite character from the show, but definitely as far as magical girl protagonists go, having the dumbass main character is a common thing, but she's still very good. I would say that she's one of my favorites among magical girl protagonists.
She's very fun and good, and dumb and good is always a good combination. And she's an awkward dork, and very much this show is just further cementing my general thoughts about magical girls, with how a lot of them commonly deal with characters who want to change, and so you have this sort of self-acceptance aspect to them. And she's a duck, but she wants to love people, but she can't because she's a duck, and that's part of her struggle. She wants to change and be someone else, which comes back in the ending in a good way. It's still really good.
And it helps that, shoot, I should have looked this up ahead of time. I wasn't prepared. But it helps that, the animation, she gets a lot of really, goofy little faces and movements and stuff. One of the details I really loved was when, she's being, super energetic. And because she's a duck, so she would, flap her wings, except, it's, so she's, there's, a sound effect where, when she's, her arms are, smears, and you hear, the wing flapping
yes.
thing.
And we didn't notice at first, but then we kind of picked up on it after a few episodes. Hey, hold on, Yeah, and of course, and even in the voice acting, she does this like quack noise, like, or whack, and like she said, but she's saying it, and it's like sometimes just when she's surprised. There was like one dramatic moment that I felt like was slightly undercut when she quacked, because it's like, oh no, dramatic, and then I'm trying not to laugh because she quacked because she's a dumb duck. That only happened once. Like that wasn't like a recurring problem. It was fine. But,
shout out to Kato Nanai, I believe is
the voice actress,
the name listed for. Yes, it was. She did a really good job. Yeah, Ahiru. And I especially like the little like subtle differences between when she is Princess Tutu and like when she is Ahiru, because there's like a little more of like
refinement.
I don't know. Yeah, refinement. That's a good word for like because Princess Tutu is this like storybook character. She's very very much put together, unlike Ahiru, who is a disaster duck.
A princess is like, someone noble and elegant, right? Where Ahiru, disaster duck is a great way to put. Like, she even has her friends, PK and Lilie, and they like kind of like, especially Lilie, kind of drags her because she loves Ahiru, but then she'll be like, even her faults. And, like, it doesn't come to a point where it's, like, becomes, like, a toxic thing that's explored, where it could have been in, like, another story. But it's funny, we'll be like, it's okay that you fail, that's cute. Or stuff, like almost, like, enjoying her for, like, her failings and stuff. Which you could also read, she's liking the Ahiru that she doesn't want to be, so to speak. But it's it's funny though, because like I remember I was like, damn, with friends like these, who needs enemies? No, they're still good, but it's just funny how consistently they just like expect her to be a clumsy dupe, because that's what she's a duck. That's what she is, and it's funny and consistently cute, and she's good.
Yeah, like the two friends have this like interesting contrast where the one is more like a negative, like, oh, it's okay that you failed because you're a failure or something like that, like embracing the more negative stuff. And then you have the other friend who is a lot of like, oh, you push forward, you need to so whether if it was like her crush on Mitho, that it's like, oh, you need to go for this, and then the other friend would be like, it's okay if you get rejected.
No, there was even one part where like they held a rejection party for her because like they assumed that she was going to go confess to someone, and they also like, which was not correct. They also knew that she was going to fail. So when she goes back to like her room, her friends had already set up a party to like help her feel better. Like, they're good friends. They just have zero expectations of her whatsoever, which is where the like them being like kind of like dragging her and being like it's that's kind of like a little messed up, but it's cute and funny, so it's endearing still. Like, it's fine. But I just like because they are good. Like I said, with the party, they're good friends at the end of the day. They just like have no expectations for Ahiru, which makes sense because she is kind of a fuck up. But that's also part of what makes her good. So yes. There were other characters. I guess you mentioned Mitho, and like I thought about it, and I guess it makes sense that he's like the least interesting of the main characters, because like literally his whole thing is that he doesn't have a heart or personality, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like he's fine, like he does what he needs to do, but he's not a kind of character who's going to be interesting outside of his role in the story, I suppose. Right? Like he's there, he's fine. But like a lot of other characters stand out more.
Yeah, no, he was good for what the story needed him for. Yeah, and it's definitely not like, oh man, I disliked him, he was so boring. It's like,
no, yeah,
you get it, you get what they're doing with him, and
yeah,
it's,
even his like
him being
yes,
yeah, like all the other characters are able to bounce off of him, and like bounce off of that lack of emotion.
Right. So yeah, exactly. Like he doesn't stand out a lot, but that's also part of that is because the other characters are just like good, and But like Fakir, who is probably our second favorite character after Ahiru, right? Holy shit. Because at first it's like, well, is that spoiler territory?
We can wait, maybe.
Yeah, okay, maybe wait on Fakir, but because I'll just say he's edgy at first. But that's also part of what makes him good. And then Rube, cute, good, gets good stuff, especially in the second half of the show. The show looks good as well. Like, just the backgrounds look nice, and, you know, it, like, the way it, like, the forms the characters when they're being goofy, or,
Yeah.
and then, like, the I don't know anything about ballet, but it seemed like it seemed to, like, fit the actual movements and stuff well enough, and it uses, like, lots of classical music and stuff, you know, it knows what it's, referencing from, basically. I'm trying to think of, like, what else can we say without bringing up spoilers?
I mean, like, in a general sense, the story has a very interesting sort of, like, theming going on with, like, stories and, you know, the frameworks of stories and...
yeah, like, a lot of the episode titles refer to a story that is being referenced, like Romeo and Juliet, or Cinderella. Like, what is the opening, like, even just Ahiru being a duck is a reference to The Ugly Duckling, because, you know, Princess Tutu has more of a swan motif, which is, you know, the ugly duckling wants to become a swan princess, basically. Right? So it very much, like, draws from kind of folk tales or, you know, Shakespeare, as I mentioned. I mean, not, I guess you could call it a Shakespeare kind of thing. I don't know, Romeo and Juliet? Sure, whatever. I just remember it being, like, an episode title. And I'm sure there's other references, like, some of them I felt familiar, but I didn't know the exact reference. And some of it's just, like, general tropes, or in general, like, there's a knight, you know, prince and princesses, right? Like, that's just common, you know, in those kinds of stories anyway. So, you know, it very much leans on that kind of fantasy thing. Oh yeah, the other thing with the setting is, like, you know, Ahiru Duck who's a girl, but it's also, there's, like, other animals.
Yeah.
And they're just kind of there, and it never gets commented on. Though we'll have to talk about it with the ending, because, like,
that ending moment was
yeah, but like there's one girl she's just a snake, and she just slithers around, and, like, I think that we were laughing because they sent her to go get, like, stuff from the store, and I'm just like, why would you send the student who doesn't have hands? Like, what can she do aside from her best? And it's like, because I know she'd try her best, but also she's a fucking snake. Why are you sending her to go pick up supplies for whatever the fuck you're doing? Like, come on. So, like, but it was just, that's the thing, it's like, no one, aside from, like, visually and, you know, and those kind of things, like, no one treated these characters any differently because they were animals, even though Ahiru's hiding her duck identity for the whole show. So it's a little weird, but it also added to, like, there was one screen cap I even saw while we were watching it, just going on Twitter, and it was, like, in the ballet class, there was just one of the students who's, like, just an alligator, wearing, like, a ballet outfit, just sitting there. She's just sitting, and it's like, and it's just out of context. I can see how that would look weird, right? Like, even in context, just the animals are just kind of there, right? So, like, there's just an alligator girl, just, like, she's gonna ballet too. Why not? And it's like, you know, and it was catching people's interest because, you know, obviously, like, again, out of context, it looks funny, but yeah, it's just there. It's just a thing. So,
although
yeah.
it is funny that you mentioned Ahiru, like, trying to, like, hide her, you know, like, her duck identity, because, like, even, like, in her room and certain items she has, like, she has her duck pillow, she has, like, an umbrella with a duck on it, and it's
Ahiru
like
means duck, which was kind of weird because sometimes the subtitles would translate it to duck, and sometimes it would leave it to Ahiru, and I don't know, like, what reasoning they had for doing one or the other, because it sounds the same. So I know, yeah, that's just something I'm not sure about. But anyway, you were saying, yeah, she duck, but like, in a room and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of an amusing dynamic. Like, I remember seeing a meme on Twitter at some point where it was like, you know, like, Mitho's conflict is, you know, all this stuff with, like, emotion and whatnot, and then Ahiru is just in the corner, like, they don't know I'm a duck, and it's like, yep, that's it, that's the whole show.
Yes. I guess one thing before we move on to spoilers is there is, like, if there's one bad thing about the show, there is a character, he's the teacher, whose running joke is that he's trying to, like, find ways to get engaged to his students. And it's not funny. It's never funny.
There's like maybe one or two episodes where the joke doesn't come up, and it's in every other episode. And
It's
yeah,
in
every time
it
it's
feels
like
every fucking episode, and it's the same joke. Like there was like one or two instances where I go like, oh, at least that one was a little different, I guess.
yeah, like the one part where they kind of mime it out, like they're
Yeah, like
at a distance.
right, like yeah, Ahiru's like far like across the river from the cat teacher, and yeah, they mime like we know what they're saying because we're so familiar with the joke, and yeah, they kind of mime it out, and I kind of like react to that, like, oh, that's a little different, and I like that aspect to it, even
and
if
then
the
there's
joke itself is
also
just
the part
not
where like
good.
the one episode where they tie in the joke into like the thematic stuff of what's going on,
That's
and it's
right,
like, what are you
because
doing?
Because there's another character who liked the cat teacher, and he's like turning her down, and that Ahiru overhears that conversation, and it like yeah, it ties to the conflict of the episode and what Ahiru is doing, and it's just like, sure.
It's also kind of
fine.
weird because like, you know, within that joke there would occasionally be a variation on it where like someone is interested in the cat sensei, but it's weird because like he's never attracted to the other animal characters who develop affection for him.
Yeah,
and
he's
only
into
like the
human ones,
characters, but he's a cat. I don't what.
Yeah, if there's some gigabrained reason as to why he's secretly good, I'd love to hear it. But also, yeah, he's easily like our mutual favorite part of the show, and
Which, like,
yeah.
even in saying that, he's not a big part of the show, so it doesn't really like do.
Yeah.
It's not much of a mark against the show. It's just kind of like every time he shows up, it's like, what?
Yeah, it's kind of like it feels the same as like Oyajide and Doremi, or just pervert characters in general, where they're just kind of like, it's a trope that, you know, obviously, you know, doesn't click with us. In like, you know, I find it, like, I guess compared to you, I find it easier to like not mind it, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Where like for you, it just seems like if it's there, it's, you know, you're gonna feel more negatively on it.
I mean, I felt like
this
this was one of the more inoffensive ones, but even in saying that, it was just kind of like, yeah, you know, I could leave it, you know.
Yeah, right. So, but yeah, it just warning if you're, because I'd highly recommend the show. It's not super long. It's good. Good magical girl stuff. And yeah, like there's just that little you know, just felt like I should mention that one part, just because it's like, yeah, this is one part that's bad and not very good, and yeah, but I suppose,
yeah, no, I absolutely recommend the show. It's great. If you haven't seen it, which I mean, I feel like I'm kind of late to the party, only seeing it now.
Well, you even put it on you did like an anime bingo with like your 24, I think, I forget or if it was 24 or 25, but like, you know, some of your favorite, and it was on there even before you'd finished the show, and I'm sure it hasn't changed. So yeah, I liked it a lot too. It's solid fun time. Glad I watched it finally. Even if you're not interested in magical girl stuff specifically, it's like, it still has like an episodic structure. You know, aesthetically and like with the transformation sequence, and thematically, like I mentioned with the self-acceptance aspect, it is a magical girl show, but it's not like, you know, it doesn't draw, I guess it's not that similar to like Precure, Sailor Moon, or something like that. But if you have a stigma against magical girls, why are you watching the Nono show? Hello, where do you think you are? So anyway, moving on to spoilers. Fakir best boy.
Oh my god. So like anytime that well, it was actually kind of funny because like with the Fakir and Ahiru dynamic, it starts off as like you know, like they're kind of incidental to each other. Like they're both sort of in the context of the story within the story. They're both like side characters. Fakir has this connection to Mitho, and Ahiru is
Princess Tutu, and
yeah,
and outside of that, she's just the duck who was added to the story, right? So she's even more territory, you could say, than the knight.
Yeah. Were you saying tertiary? I don't know what the word was you just used.
I think you said it correct. Math whiz, we've been over this. I only read, I don't talk. I don't know how words work. I didn't know how to pronounce that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But yeah, then there's like a part where they have like, I think it was in the first half of the show. They have like, there's an episode where Ahiru loses the pendant that makes her Princess Tutu, and she's like reverted to a duck. And she happens to come across Fakir in her duck form, and Fakir obviously doesn't recognize her because at that point, no one knows she's a duck.
Yeah, and
and they
turns
have
out
like a
with
really wholesome
yes.
interaction because he protect the duck.
Yeah, well, right, because the duck is like in the change room, and he like covertly like takes her and like hides her in his clothes so that he can like take her out without anyone noticing. Like, because to him it's just a random duck that he's helping out, but like, because yeah, that's what really like helped their dynamic, because like with Mytho, he kind of acts the same towards everyone, right?
Yeah.
So what there's no real difference between how he treats Ahiru and how he treats Princess Tutu, though obviously like he cares more about Tutu. But with Fakir, like he had those differing dynamics with he Princess Tutu is an enemy. She's trying to give Mitho back his heart, therefore and which would cause him pain. So therefore she has to be stopped. But Ahiru annoyance at school, and then duck, precious duck, protect the duck. Or I loved your tweet where it's like you know protect the duck, hug the duck, forfeit all mortal possessions to the duck. And it's like, because before that he was definitely this edgy boy who seemed like, I thought he was the Raven at first, right? Because it's like, okay, the Raven trapped the heart, Fakir seems
Yeah,
to be
and especially when we don't get, we don't have all the details of like what's going on with the prince yet, because he's like, you can't regain your heart shards, so he's kind of like an antagonist at first.
Right, but then I even noticed at one point he's like, oh wait, he's being kind of protective of Mitho, like he seems legitimately like concerned for his sake, which didn't seem to line up with how his edgy boy-ness is acting around Mitho. And then once we get that other layer with when he starts interacting with the duck, and like, oh my god, there's a soft boy in there, yay! And then he like immediately like shot up to like a top character in Princess Tutu, and that never changed.
Yeah, the episode where he finds out about Ahiru's secret, and they're able to kind of like open up to each other. That's
yes.
really good. It was also one of those things where like I didn't think the story was gonna like go through with the ship. I was like, oh man, these characters have such a good dynamic together, but they're both like supporting characters in this story, in the
it was
in the
like
context of the story.
It was kind of like a Danganronpa Mastermind thing with your streams, where it's like it starts off as like kind of a joke, a meme, but then it becomes reality, right?
Yeah.
Which makes it all the more like, yeah, when because that's how it ended up. They're together. Yes.
A lot of the material they got like later into the thing, like anytime they like when they were at the bottom of like the lake of despair, and they were doing they were doing their dance, and it's just like my heart can't take this.
Yes. And they're very, and because like, I mean, the episode that I was thinking of where he first encounters Duck Ahiru, like those were good. And then like next time we watched, it was that was when he found out about the duck and them being the same person, and that was all you mentioned that, and that was also just like really funny too, when she just like, because she it's funny to see, I don't know, blushing is always cute. Because whenever she turns into a duck and then turns back, she's naked, and Fakir is pure, and he's like, oh fuck, I don't want to look at her, and so it's just like the childish awkwardness. I just thought it was funny as hell.
Yeah, and like the one part where there's like the full body like blush because she has her back turned, and it's like, I don't know, it's definitely like they have a fun dynamic. And even before that, when they're doing like, they're going through like the underground cave or whatever, and she's just a klutz and is like running into things and like dying, and he's like, you're really Princess Tutu? Are you sure about that?
Another one I liked is, I think Uzuru was involved because she's this little agent of chaos. Like there was even a gag with it where like time stops because she has to talk to Drosselmeyer. But like while she was in duck form in bed with Fakir, like Uzuru is about to spill water on her, and so like the logical like progression of that is she's naked in bed with Fakir, which is like immediately like awkward, embarrassing situation for both of them, which is funny to imagine, but it didn't happen. But that gag is still kind of there with the time stop. But even before that, I think was I just remember Fakir like with his nose against the wall, like a child in a timeout almost, because he doesn't want to see her, obviously, like because for her sake. And it's just, he's so fucking cute. Both of them are, and so the
yeah, Uzura definitely that element of chaos. He just comes through and is like, I spook the duck. Just like causing all sorts of shenanigans, and it's because like she's a child. She's like, oh hey, this girl can turn into a duck. That's mysterious. That's fun. But the way that the stuff between Edel and Uzura ended up tied together was also really good. The whole like plot device character in the first half coming back and like gaining its own sort of like sentience, gaining its own like heart.
Yes, which ties directly into because yeah, we didn't talk about. I'm glad we didn't talk about it before the spoiler section, even though it is a big like we alluded to it with the like stories relevance to like stories and folktales. But yeah, there's a whole meta bend to the thing, which and it is like what I've commonly seen, like what meta stories will do, or at least stories that refer to like fictional like kind of frameworks, like a book or fucking like, and they'll frame it under fate, which is like some two shows that I've seen that do it are Ultraman Geed and Kamen Rider Xaid, which are both toku, but one of them like in Xaid is about video games, and they use like the video games as like they tie that to fate, right? Like because it's a fictional a medium, right? So and yeah, this does it with more like stories and folktales, and like Drosselmeyer is the writer, and then it turns out so is Fakir. And so, like, yeah, with Uzura and Edo sort of gaining their own heart, they're also like they're changing from plot devices to characters. Like they're taking hold of their own fate and becoming human. Because like, and I was realizing early into the show because I'm like, oh shit, Edo, like she's a puppet. Oh, she's like a literal plot device. Or Drosselmeyer, like he's always friends with like Gears and Clockwork. He's a god of the machine. Deus Ex Machina. And I'm like, motherfucker, these writers know exactly what they're fucking doing. No, it was good to see how it resolved and such. And it was a fun kind of like frame, because they're the characters are struggling with their place in the story, like Princess Tutu being like her fate to confess her love to and die or vanish into a speck of light rather. As a side character, but then she finds another love instead, and it works out. And then you have Rue, who she was actually a human child, but she was taken in by the Raven, and but she ends up with Mitho because she's finally able to, like, instead of demanding love, she's finally able to give love. And which in turn Mitho fell in love with her, and it's good. Nice.
Yeah, I really liked how it all came together for all the characters. Like Drew had a very good role in the story. Because I don't know, there was the interesting sort of a contrast between her and Ahiru, which was one was a duck turned into a person, the other was a person who was raised to think that they were
a bird, right? Yes. Though speaking of that, I like the Raven was kind of similar to Mitho, where he's like fulfills his role really well. But also, like, I don't know, I just like the presentation of the Raven was interesting because, like, the story starts, like, when you think of Raven, you just think of a fucking bird. But then, like he has this whole, like, there's the world that he talks to, Rue, Princess Cry, in, and, I butchered that, but don't mind me. And I was reminded of Precure, because a lot of Precure series have, like, a sort of other space where the villains interact and talk and stuff, like, you're watching Futaro Precure, right? Like there's the Lord of Darkness guy and the big space with all the
if you didn't mention that, that's what I was about to mention.
Right, and a lot of series have like Heal and Good Precure just end, and it had a place that like it looks like hell with the devil characters, and then there's a big space in the sky who's the king Pathogerm. Who's the big bad, right? So that kind of space was already familiar with me from Precure, though, even though the show predates Precure. So like, but he's just the Raven, which is really like he doesn't have a fancy title. He's not like some fancy he is like this giant supernatural like entity with lots of presence, but it's just, I don't know, the way it's just like the Raven. That's like that's interesting to me, I guess, is what I'm saying, because for such an innocuous sounding name, he's like and when he comes up in the last episode, he's this big like city affecting force with like that's massive, and it's just I liked it, and he did have quite a bit of presence in the last parts of the show, especially, and the second half in general, but yeah, it was the Raven was good, is what I'm saying, and like I said, interesting because of like how I connected him to things I already seen, and but at the end of the day, it's just the Raven, and there's something about that I appreciate, I guess.
And anytime that he's like on screen, like the visual aesthetic of the Raven is always very good, because whether it's the alternate world where there's like all the giant feathers kind of sticking out of the ground,
and his face in the sky, and
the face in the sky, and when the characters do like their like, oh, I'm gonna take your heart, and like Mitho becomes like a raven with a raven in the background, and it's
Yes.
yeah.
No, yeah, the aesthetic of the show in general is cool, but the Raven has like his own brand, I guess, or shade of the aesthetic that he adds to it. That's it's nice and good. And yeah, I guess he and kind of Drosselmeyer, like another thing I was thinking of regarding the whole like the framing of the meta and the books and stuff is because like Drosselmeyer, he doesn't care about the meaning of his story. He just wants to see tragedy and suffering, right? But also he doesn't even care that much when like the story has its ending, and he just goes, all right, I'll just write another story. Like he just moves on. And of course, there's a little fourth wall poking at the end there, which is like surprising that didn't happen earlier, considering how meta this, the meta there. But I don't know, I just associate it with like nihilism, like when Rue was in like the depths of despair, dancing, like dance until you die, like because that's kind of like a nihilistic take on things, like what is life but dancing until you die. But like obviously the characters, instead of accepting their roles and just that kind of they move on from nihilism into accepting their reality and choosing their own fate, basically. Which has the climax where Ahiru, as the duck, not Princess Tutu, does the Princess Tutu dance and come dance with me, but as the duck, and it's like, yeah, let's go, because that's her accepting herself, like becoming Princess Tutu as a duck, like in spirit rather than just like with a transformation sequence, accepting herself and being a light of hope that saves everything. And yes, it's very good. Good duck. The duck saved the world. I do have one other thing to mention, but it's kind of small, so I feel like we're getting close to the end though, unless you have more to talk about.
I mean, like, Fakir's development of, like, taking over the reins of the writer, sort of, like, taking over Drosselmeyer's position, it was just neat to see how, like, those two characters kind of, how their roles developed, and they kind of, as they, moved away from, like, the story within the story, to, like, tell their own story, it was cool.
Yes, the only other thing I had to mention was how it was just because so we talked about the animals already, but at the end of the show, there aren't any, or it's like we see characters who would have been animals before, but now they're human, except the cat sensei, who's now an actual cat, and he has like kittens and a lady cat, and it's like, what the fuck is going on? Why? Ahiru just like she's a duck with Fakir.
And her friends, there's that moment where they're like walking along and they look behind them and it's like, is something missing here?
Right, like there's space between them because they're used to be surrounding Ahiru but she's not there. What's going on? Huh? Right. So it's like, the world's changed because of the events of the story. But I just can't. I don't understand what was with the animal thing, I guess. Like it does it. Like it adds a neat flair, like visually, and to the character designs, I suppose. But and like one regular thing I think of is how like abstracting certain things also kind of makes them more palatable, because like as as the joke with the cat sensei is like if he was human, like it would be even less funny, I think, right? Because it would be more creepy, I think. Because as a cat, like when he's rejected, he does a bunch of like dumb cat motions and stuff. Like I can understand the humor in that, right? Because it's because he's a cat. So I guess like there's that. But was this joke and character really important enough to like devote a whole portion of your aesthetic to having animal people? I'm just saying. But that about covers. Like we said, short episode. Because episodically, like they were good in the individual conflicts where Princess Tutu's dancing with people and helping them, using them to kind of understand, helping them understand themselves, and in turn, like Mitho kind of comes into it and herself.
Yeah, so, and there were definitely some interesting side characters, especially like once it moves on to the second half, because you get like. The other like false prince guy who is just kind of a dork.
That's right. Yeah, and he's like got bizarre fashion choices, and like he was just like that episode was fun to watch together because we were just like, what the fuck the whole time, right? Because like what? And this guy's so extra, and it's like I don't know. We were just like dumbstruck the entire time, I suppose. So that was an extra layer of fun.
There was also an episode in the first half which had like the dance instructor who had this thing with like the role she had to play, but like she wasn't able to like fulfill that role because there was like a line about how like she she was afraid to dream, so like she couldn't play a character who who continues to dream. And I thought that at the time that there was kind of like a parallel to Ahiru, because she had this like idea that like she couldn't. I forget exactly what it was now because it's been so long and the series ended.
Yeah.
But something about Ahiru, the prince being unattainable, months, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, see, like the show, like I not that I didn't enjoy watching it together with you, but like I do note it because like the way I do I like to take notes when I watch things, which involves pausing it and writing stuff down. So like I can't necessarily like if I were to hypothetically make a Princess Tutu video, and I don't know if I would because like these are, like I said, these are ideas I've already seen in other things in some ways, but also like it's still a solid show, and maybe rewatching it I'd notice even more things. If I were going to talk about it, I would rewatch it just to spend a little bit more time with it. Because I guess that's the weird thing, right? Is like, because we're watching it as the show is intended to be watched, right? Where it's just play all at once. But in our modern age, I imagine you're no different from me, where watching a show involves a lot of pausing, right?
Oh, yeah, like to get all my screen caps, like I had to go back and replay the episodes after we were done to get all my screen caps.
Right, so like exactly. So it is weird to think about how like the way we watched it was normal. So that which was part of why it was different, I guess, for us. And good show, fun show. I don't closing thoughts. Aside from watch it, because that's a good closing thought.
I liked how the message at the end was like, getting friend zoned isn't so bad actually. Because I don't know, I liked the way that the story actually went with because as it was set up, like, oh, Princess Tutu is in love with the prince, but she can't confess her love, and it's like, oh, so it's gonna end like that way, and it's like, what's gonna happen with Rue? I don't know, but that's not where the story went, and I liked where it went.
Yes.
And also, it's another story where like main girl gets flustered by other girls from time to time, and it's like, oh man, this is the bi representation I need. But it ends with a het ship, and it's like, you know what, this still has rights.
Especially when the two characters are very good. Why not, right? So
God, Fakir's so good. Fakir's so good.
Yes. Yep. Anyway, thank you.
I wish that I had more to say about Rue, because like I like her design, and like she has a good role in the story.
Her
it's just
kind of hair. Like, her hair's so fluffy.
But yeah, overall it was good, and like character designs, amazing. Like Ahiru, she has like her hair is kind of duck-like, but then she also has like this scorpion tail, which just works.
Yeah, no, it's perfectly fine. But I was definitely like, a couple times I looked at it, and it's like, okay, she's a duck, but she's a scorpion. Like it was just like it's weird for me to be picking up on an animal feature that she doesn't have, and a show that otherwise like uses the animal motif. So like I don't understand why she has the scorpion tail, or maybe it's supposed to be something else, and that's just what I happen to associate it with. I don't know, but also I like their poofy skirts. Are funny.
Yeah.
So.
The outfits in the show are good, especially like the one time where Rue has like, I don't know what the aesthetic is called, but she has like like the hat and the different
like the Victorian era.
Yeah, that might be it.
I think I know what you're talking about, and yes, it's because it's definitely like the castles and the supposed time period. It very much is that kind of like that sounds like a Victorian era would be era would be the term that we're thinking of. So
and Ahiru with like the the shirt and like the yellow like the dress skirt thingy. It's just show has good fashion and good character designs and good aesthetic, like the whole thing with like the moving gears and the characters kind of popping in and out of shadows and stuff. Like, it's good.
So that reminds me though. Speaking of like aesthetic, maybe I don't like. I'm thinking of Falk here because his shirt, it has like uneven sleeves and there's like tears in it. I'm trying to remember. Is like, was it always like that? Did he like keep wearing the shirt after it was battle damaged, or is his edgy aesthetic just so edgy that he'll literally worn ripped up clothing like it's nothing? Like I don't. I like both of those.
I'm pretty sure it was a different outfit in the second half.
Gotcha.
Because he just has like the one sleeve, which is like I think like a full sleeve, and the other is like a half sleeve, and it's even like cut up at the shoulder, and it's like because I remember pointing it out when it first showed up, and I was like, that's interesting.
Yeah, and then I just thought about it while we were talking about clothing, and I'm like, oh yeah, Falk here is a fucking disaster. So like more so a disaster than Ahiru in this one area, but that endears it, makes him even more endearing. So yeah. Anyway. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time for I don't know what we'll talk about next time. Futaro Precure, Cardcaptor Sakura. We're gonna watch something. I don't know. But thank you for listening. Goodbye.
The legend that we will one day watch Futaro wa Precure continues.
It's the Kinnikuman.